My name's Joan, and my pronouns are she and her. I'm a student recruitment officer at Memorial University. I did my undergraduate and master's degrees at MUN. So my master's was in counseling psych, and my undergrad was in psychology. And today I have joining with me a number of phenomenal senior students who would like to share their tips and tricks on how to be successful in your first year. They're current students at MUN, so they're going through the pandemic and working remotely just like you folks will be soon. But before we get started, just have to go over a couple of housekeeping items. This session's being recorded, so if you are participating, you're consenting to that. Your mics are muted and your video is turned off. This is just to help facilitate the session and make it accessible for everyone. But if you do have a question, please use the chat function, and use the chat function that's to all so that we can all see your questions and make sure they get answered, because that's our main priority here today. And if you have a question that doesn't get answered in the session, don't worry, someone's going to be directly messaging and monitoring the chat, and so you'll get a direct message from one of the staff. Awesome. So to get us started with some quick intros, panelists, if each of you could tell me a little bit about yourselves and your name, what you're studying, something maybe fun that you like to do at Memorial or just in general. I'm going to start off with Advay, since he is the first one on my screen.
Hi, Advay, also go by Addy. So I'm in my third year studying business at MUN. My pronouns are he and him or they and them. And well, something fun that I like to do. Right now I'm volunteering at around 8 or 9 places around the university. So you might see me around.
Awesome, thanks, Advay. And what I didn't catch what you also go by, Advay and
Addy.
Ali.
Addy, ADI.
Addy. Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming today. Now we have Brad. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hello, everyone. My name is Brad. I'm a senior student at Memorial University, of course. I'm going into my final semester of political science, and my pronouns are he and him, and I like to take lots of photos when I'm on campus and at Memorial.
Thanks so much, Brad, for joining us today. Matt, you're next up.
Hi there. My name's Matt. I'm going into my penultimate semester of a commerce degree. I go by he and him or they and them. Lots of fun things to do around campus. It's really beautiful architecture around, so I do like just wandering around to pass the time.
Awesome. And Annie, the best for last.
My name is Annie Skinner. I'm going into my last year of a commerce degree. My pronouns are he or she, her. And I like to never leave the business building.
So, again, if you folks have questions that are watching today, put them in the chat. Make sure you're using the function that's chatting to everybody so that we can all see them. But our first question we have here that anybody can really jump in on. What was your first day at Memorial like, folks? If you can throw it back to your very first day at MUN, what was going on? How did that go for you? Where were you coming from? All those go through great thoughts. If anybody would like to speak to that.
Mine personally was chaotic. I had no idea what was going on. It was scary. I didn't like how big the lectures were. It was a really big transition from high school. It took me like a couple of weeks to just get used to how big the class sizes were. And yeah, there was just so many people. It was really overwhelming, personally.
That's fair.
Mine was super exciting. So I just moved in from India, and I was about to move into res, but I made a mistake. I was living all the way out in Kitchussis, and for those of you who are not in St. John's, it's like probably around 70 kilometers off the campus. And turns out transport would be like. But apart from that, it was really fun. I got into the university like the very first day and met like as many people as I could.
Advay, was it your first time in St. John's when you first came here?
Yep, it was.
Yeah, wow. And in Canada, or have you been out there?
No, it was my first time in Canada as well.
That must have been really exciting, but also really, really confusing at the same time, hey?
I wouldn't say I was confused. I was just very excited. It's sort of like the honeymoon period for me.
Fair. That's exciting. Awesome. So I'm hearing from Advay and Annie. How about Brad and Matt? What were you thinking on your first day at MUN?
Ooh, well, my first day at MUN, and now I remember I got a memory of it there the other day. It was September 1st, 2014, a mere 6 years ago. But it was good. It was, yes, a lot of people, but I felt very at home. All of the welcome week and orientation stuff that they had going on for us. Mind you, the first day of classes was a little bit different because I remember getting my class numbers mixed up and thinking I had a class in the education building when it was really in the engineering building and having to run across campus and be late to one of my first classes. But it was good. It was overall, it was okay.
Awesome. Matt?
Yeah, I had a bit of a similar experience on my first day. There's some of the lecture theaters are labeled, like for instance in the education building, there's 1000A and 1000B all the way at the end of that hallway there, and I went to the wrong one, and I remember the prof saying, "There's too many people in the class here. Somebody must be in the wrong room," and me thinking, "Oh gosh, what kind of idiot didn't read their schedule right?" And of course it was me. So that's my traumatic memory from my first day of classes.
So I'm hearing there was some excitement, there was some overwhelming feelings, there was a little bit of confusion, but overall y'all got here. So that you got through it eventually. What helped you through those few days? Were you nervous when you started? That kind of thing. What helped you out with that?
Well, I think I just went to every single orientation event and explored the campus as much as I could. Sort of like knew my ins and outs. And living in Res, we actually moved in like 4 days or something before the classes began. So we had a lot of time to sort of explore and get to know places.
So I'm hearing connection, and you can certainly do that as well, learning in a remote way in a number of different ways. There's discussion forums, there's orientation activities and welcome week activities that can help you get that same level of connection from a experience when this cohort starts. Folks, I'm just going to throw it out there. What was your favorite part of your first year at Memorial?
Mine was probably meeting new people and just having a new environment. And it was much bigger than high school, which I liked a lot. It was just really different. I felt like you could be more yourself than you could in high school.
You could find your people easier.
Yeah, definitely.
For sure. I found that the same way. I
Yeah.
came from a really rural community, so coming to Memorial is definitely a breath of fresh air for me. Would anybody else like to add?
I can say that my favorite part of my first year was volunteering. I got involved as much as I could in my first year, and that's how I actually met most of the people I know today through volunteering.
Awesome. So creating those connections and giving back to the community here in St. John's, for sure. So I have a question from a student that just came in. What are some of the challenges you faced as a first year student, and how did you manage to overcome them?
I could take this first. So some of the challenges that I faced as first year was not knowing where I belonged. I didn't know necessarily what I wanted to study. I was undeclared for my first 3 years in my undergrad. But after like toward the end of my first year, I started getting involved on campus, and that's when I started feeling more comfortable, even though I still didn't know entirely what I wanted to study. I found people with like minds and volunteered a lot and got to know a lot of people. So yeah.
Thanks, Brad. I really appreciate that. It seems like, while you're here, you may be lost at first, but eventually you're gonna figure it out and find your way once you find your people. That's like Annie said earlier. Is there anyone else that would like to share?
One thing that I found about being a, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, nice. One thing I found about being a first year student was maybe not even the student aspect of it so much as it was just living away from home for my first year and having to deal with all kinds of stuff, getting around the city without having my mom to drive me around and this kind of stuff, just learning how to take care of yourself as an individual. Um, Maybe not exactly the answer you were looking for, but that I found was definitely, for me, one of the biggest learning experiences. First year at university was just being independent and figuring stuff out.
Exactly, adjusting and figuring out that flow that really works for you, what your life is going to look like more independently. That's definitely a transition for sure. Awesome. And now that you're senior students, what do you know now that you really wish? Is there anything that you know now that you really wish you had known in your first year? So, any support services or anything at all, really, that you're like, wow, if I had known this in first year, it would have been great.
I can take this one also if you want.
Yeah, for sure, Brad.
One thing that I wish I knew, or just I wish I realized more in my first year, was that no one on campus cares what you do or how you dress or anything like that. Now that I'm a fifth year student, I feel a lot more like I have a place in the university, I guess, if that makes any sense. But in hindsight, I don't walk around looking at first years saying, "Oh, nice shoes," or anything like that. It's just no one cares. You're all people. You're all like adults now, trying to get stuff done, go to class, get your education. Just be yourself.
I love that. Thanks. That's definitely it's good to just chill.
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome.
I feel like mine is similar to Matt's in the way that I just wish I was a bit more like outgoing because everyone's in the same boat. So if you reach out to other people, they would really appreciate it, just like you would appreciate if someone reached out to you and was like, "Hey, do you want to study sometime?" Stuff like that. I found that is also like the main way that I was able to make friends was just like other people reaching out to me or me like stepping up and reaching out to them. So just being more outgoing, I think, would be really helpful.
Yeah, I mean, it is a big difference coming from high school and entering into university and needing to be more, having the onus more on yourself and being able to reach out a little bit more and that kind of thing is definitely an adjustment, but so helpful for sure.
Yeah.
So we have another student asking if you folks were overwhelmed with your academics in terms of course load when you first started out.
I could take this one on first. So it depends. Personally, myself, I've never taken a full course load throughout my time at Memorial. That's why it's taken me so long. But in my first semester, I remember it's going to be challenging if you don't know how to manage your time well. But also, I didn't really know how to study when I was in high school. I just kind of like sailed through, whereas you actually do have to really study and apply yourself at university level. But it's nothing unmanageable or unbearable.
That's fair. Anybody else inviting you to speak to that?
Yeah, I think that just knowing how to study and how to properly take notes in lectures is by far the most important thing. In high school, things are a lot more incremental. You've got probably homework or something every week that you got to hand in, and this kind of stuff. It's very step by step, versus you're in a 4-month class when you get to university, and there might be 2 midterms and a final, and that's it. You can sail through a month without your prof hearing anything from you. You don't have to go to class, as much as you should. No one forces you to go. It's really on you to get that stuff done. And if you're just take 5 minutes out of your day to look at what do I have to do, what tests are coming up, what and just organize it like that, you're going to have so much of an easier time than if you just kind of sail through it and expect your profs to tell you what to do.
Awesome. Yeah, absolutely. Being that independent, outgoing student is definitely something to get used to. It's best to learn that early, for sure. We're here to help you always at the institution. I work in the recruitment office, and I super love when students pop in to say hi and ask questions and that kind of thing. If you ever want to visit, our door is always open, and that's pretty much the vibe throughout the university too. So we are wondering, we do have a student who's wondering if they're coming for the first time to Newfoundland, and they're wondering, do you have any advice for students who are coming for the very first time? Advay, I'd love to know your thoughts on this one.
Sure. So I think I really if you're coming into Newfoundland for the first time, I think the best thing you can do is prep for the weather. I wasn't really prepped, but I luckily had a stopover at Toronto, and I did buy a lot of winter coats and stuff like that from there. I'd say the winter isn't much of a problem, but the wind definitely is. It can get quite frustrating in early winter. You do have the tunnels in the university, but when you're not in the university, it can be a little hectic. So yeah, I think just having the right clothes in and being prepped for that is pretty helpful.
That's an awesome segue to our next question, which was, does the cold weather stop anyone from university life?
Oh, I can go in again. I'd say the cold weather sort of helps us have more of a university life. It has its own fun, where, I mean, of course, if you're running around the university, you need to get from one place to the other. You have the tunnels. So you have a great way to get from various places, get to various places. But also, when we lived in Res, during Snowmageddon, so during the massive snowstorm we had in the winter, we actually built a snow fort right outside our house. In the community, you get to play around in the snow, you get to have a lot of fun. So I think it does help with the university life. I wouldn't say it really impacts it in a negative way.
Absolutely. It's always a bit of fun getting out with your neighbors and shoveling. So another question just came in on what the best way to take class notes is, and they're wondering if you guys have any tips.
I would say take notes. Definitely, if the prof is saying something twice, highlight that. I guess I don't know how the lectures are working for everyone, but definitely watch them, pay attention, be present, and take notes.
I actually met one of my first friends at MUN because he sat behind me and he just told me that he asked me if I was the person just typing on the keyboard and typing on the laptop throughout the time during class was going on. So just taking notes is really helpful. And I also think having you don't really need to there's some profs who don't like you having your laptops on. So especially when you're in classes, so I keep this really cool reusable notebook called Rocketbook. It's just that you can wipe things off and then rewrite it and then upload it to your drive. That helps me stay organized.
I would also say, just on the importance of taking notes, well, each prof is different. Like some will have their notes in slides that you could print off at a later time or look at, but definitely jot note things that they say. Especially a lot of profs will tell you the important stuff to highlight, but taking notes is definitely important because you're not going to remember as much as you'd like to hope you're going to remember just without taking notes. You're probably going to be taking 5 courses starting off, and university life throws a bunch of other things on your plate. So definitely take notes. Yeah.
I don't want to be the black sheep here, but at least for me personally, I find it very hard to take notes in class. I find if I take notes that are too detailed, I'll often miss what the prof is saying while I'm writing down those notes. But then if I take notes that aren't that detailed, I'll look over them later and say, what was I writing? You know? And so for me, I find that the best strategy is to just kind of sit in class and like pay as much attention to what they're saying and try to absorb it as much as possible. And then I usually like to go back and reread the slides if they post them to D2L, or read the textbook and do that kind of stuff, as opposed to just looking at notes. But then I'll take the textbook and I'll copy out a lot of the information that's in the textbook so as to sort of solidify it in my own head by writing it out, as opposed to taking more notes in class. But like obviously do what is best for you and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it sounds like it's a super individualized, learn what works best for you kind of scenario. Like for me, I used to print my notes off and write in the little side bar with the slides if my professor provided slides. So I think it's all about really getting into the groove of things and figuring out what works best for you as a student, because everybody learns different. Just a reminder, folks, for anybody who's joined us halfway through, we're using the chat function to everybody in the WebEx platform in order to get your questions to us. So if you have any questions, please put them there. Our next question is about on-campus employment. So I know a couple of you have held jobs on campus, a number of jobs on campus. How do you folks find applying to jobs, and what's that process look like? Is it something that first year students can avail of?
Yes, I think applying for jobs is probably the easiest thing I did, especially through going on like mymun.ca and just applying for it, because it's a lot easier applying for jobs at MUN, since you rarely need to go through those massive applications that other external employers have. Usually jobs at MUN are a lot easier to get as well, in my opinion, because they're again geared towards people with little to no experience. A lot of jobs are there to help us build experience. I had my first job in my second year, though I did not have any in my first year, but I wasn't looking for a job. But when I applied for a job, I actually got applied for like every single job, which was not something I'd recommend. I applied for like 500 jobs. I had a bunch of interviews. But again, it's really easy. Like it's that easy that I would actually apply for like 500 jobs in like a week.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that, Advay. And I know, Brad, you've held a number of positions at the university. Could you share a little bit about your experience?
For sure. First, though, I will plug career development. They offer great resume critiquing for folks who either don't have a resume or have a resume, but they want to increase their chances of employment. That's a free service that the university offers. But yeah, no, it's not too bad. MUSEPs, you have to be a full-time student, so a minimum of 3 courses. They could range from 40 to 80 hours over the course of the semester, but a lot of people go after them for like working in their own discipline. Like, for instance, political science, like I study, there's USEPs for editing the political journals. Various profs will have different USEPs, and you could learn about them from word of mouth as well. But I'm sure you folks have already learned about, maybe through MUN 101 if you're engaged with that, about on-campus employment, but there'd be more of that to come for Welcome Week.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that, Brad. Does anybody else want to jump in? No, we're good. Okay, so another question that we had is about how to make friends in universities. So I know this is going to be a little bit of a different answer for our new students in our incoming class who's learning remotely. Do you have any tips or tricks on how folks can now make students now that we're in a digital platform?
There is Facebook group chats for classes now, which is something I figured out yesterday. And that can be a great way to make course friends. Another way, I just thought I'd plug in the Student Volunteer Bureau. So through Student Volunteer Bureau, you can find a massive amount of volunteering opportunities. And by volunteering, you can still make a lot of friends since a lot of volunteering requires collaboration. Yeah.
Chat.
I will also plug, I'm going to say this over and over again, get involved. And there are ways to get involved, of course, like Advay just mentioned, the Student Volunteer Bureau, even through remote. But also, folks, if you're new to MUN now, Peer Network is something you should already be familiarized with. Maybe you might have gotten an email about that meeting with your success mentors. So you could meet new students through that. Also, Navigate, it's the app that we use to book appointments with academic advisors, but also you could find study buddies through that. So yeah, there's tons of ways. Clubs and societies, if you have an interest, there's probably a club or society for that, and Mansu will be hosting a Clubs and Societies Expo on like the 14th or 15th of September. I'm not sure the exact date, but it should be on the calendar for the university's welcome.
Awesome. We can put that calendar in the chat too if it's online. And our next question is about residence. Folks are wondering if any of you have residence experience and what was that like for you? Advay, I know you lived in residence.
Well, I think it was really fun. I got to make a lot of friends, and I'd say the most fun I had in res was probably the first night, which is probably the best night for many people. You get to go out and yell stuff in the square. You get to you have res X, you have the winter carnival at res, which is probably something if you meet students at res, they talk to you about it for like ever. It's like something that people in res are really passionate about, and it can be pretty fun. And I'd say res in general is a great way to meet new people, and also you don't have to cook. Yeah.
Awesome. Definitely a lot of house spirit for sure in res.
I also stayed in res for a couple of years, and I would say it's a really good experience, especially for making friends and just getting to know people across campus. Best thing about that is, like when you're in classes, of course, you meet everyone who's in your faculty or in your classes, but when you're in res, you'll meet people from all over the university. And if you choose to stick around with them, you're going to meet people from their faculties, and it's a really great way to like branch out and just meet a lot of people. But of course, it's not for everybody. Most people stay there for probably only a year and then move off campus. I stayed there for 2.5 years, which was definitely like a bit long. Probably wouldn't have hurt to move out a little bit before then. Like having your own room and stuff is really nice, but you do sometimes hear people partying upstairs and this kind of stuff. It's usually not that bad at all, but it is one of those things that's not for everybody. I think it's more so the longer you stay there, the more you kind of want to go and find your own place. But for at least the first semester, the first year, like everyone seems to have a really good time there.
Yeah, definitely a great place to connect with folks. So looking forward to the future when our residences do open and we do go back to being in person. It'd definitely be an option for you. Awesome, guys. This is coming to the end of our session. I'm aware of our time there now. Thanks so much to all of our panelists for joining us today and for folks who are joining us live online. If you have any other questions at all, feel free to email us at ask@mon.ca. And also be sure to check out our next session on career services, which is going to be Wednesday at 2 p.m. Newfoundland time. Thanks, everyone. Have a fabulous day.